right, everyone. I'm here. I apologize for the slight delay, but just making sure everything is set up and ready to go. Yeah, it is. All right, excellent. So, Thursday. That's music day. And it is week 26 of the new year, which makes... of 2020. It's week 26 of 2026, which makes sense. We did just pass the summer solstice last weekend, so that is kind of pretty much the halfway point. I did put in the description, though, that this is not, in my opinion, the actual halfway point for music, simply because the first few weeks were connected to trying to hit some of those releases from 2025, which I missed during that period. So I still have a few more weeks to be, as I said in the description, underwhelmed by what we've had so far this year. Not to say that there hasn't been good music, just feels like I have been wading through a lot of less than stellar stuff. But as it is, we have 9 releases this time around. It is kind of a mix, I guess, what we would say, of like, we've got 3 EPs. We have, I think it's like a 3-3-3 split. 3 like mini albums, 3 full lengths, and then 3 EPs. So, hey, that's I guess that's all right. Balance. But it is just, we've got 3 metal releases, and then the rest are kind of pop and indie. No electronic music this week, no rap and hip hop this week. And that, again, is not to say, that's not due to a lack of trying to find stuff on my part. That's just, I was thinking about this just a little bit ago. Like, realistically, tomorrow is Friday, and it's the last Friday of June. So maybe it will just be like a ridiculous release schedule. But just to let everybody out there get an idea of just how slow the release schedule has been in June, there are currently in my May playlist, the playlist of releases from May, that I did not get around to. I have 1,110 tracks, right? That's for the month of May. For the month of June, in terms of tracks that I have not gotten around to, either like to do a review on or just to delete because they suck, I have 388. 1,110 versus 388. And it's not like I've just been listening to music nonstop in June and I've just been consuming. I have deleted a ton of stuff that I listened to. So it's just like, it's been a much slower month. And it's, like I said, I've been tossing a few out. There's actually stuff in May I probably should go back and check out, but whatever. I guess we'll see what this next Friday brings. If it is as tepid as the last few have been, and that's perhaps what I will be doing. But anyway, let's get, oh god damn it, okay, there we go, I'm back on it. Let me make sure I've got we want to make sure that everything is loud enough. I had somebody tell me that it wasn't very loud last time, so if the music is a little bit more quiet, if you think I should turn it up a little bit, let me know about all of that. But let's get into it. All right, how about we do that? So we are starting with this EP here. Hell of a title to start with. Персидский поэт, каморке, конъсержки. What is каморка? I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. This is the group ROOK, which is an indie group that the last time they released an album EP was back in 2024. And so it's been, 2 years since the last time they really put anything out. Although if you do go and find. For some reason, they actually have 2 Spotify pages, so it's one of those things where it's confusing. For whatever reason, I don't know why that happens sometimes. It's not the first time I've seen that happen with artists. But they actually do have a pretty sizable output. But this is the first time I heard of them. This is the first of 3 EPs that they have planned for this year. It's kind of that chamber indie soft rock. It's indie rock, but it's kind of got the chamber additional orchestration. But it's also just kind of like a very soft rock energy. It's got lots of flourishes, a lot of soul to it. I'm not fully sure why they included the censored version to the track when the uncensored one is right there. And if you look at the lyrics, there are no bad words in the uncensored one. So I have no idea what any of that is about. But yeah, let's just jump into it. Okay, there we go. I thought we were having issues again. Still pretty quiet. All right. I don't know if me turning it up makes any difference, but I'll... I'll just push it up all the way. Just bump it up a little bit more. So you can hear the whole, like, again, the instrumentation, the flourishes that I was talking about with regards to the sort of like chamber-ish indie rock. But overall, there's just a lot of like soft rock energy here, right? Jump ahead. So yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward. Again, a kind of like chamber indie soft rock a lot of descriptors there, but I think they all apply here. Only 4 tracks, all things considered. Again, that 5th one is a censored version of the first track, and the first track doesn't have anything vulgar in it or anything even taboo, so I don't know why it's there, but regardless, that is the group Les ROOK, or Les ROOK, I don't know. And the EP is Persidski poet v kamorke konъсержки. The Persian poet. What is kamorka? Let me actually. Yeah, it's just it's in the right. The concierge in old Soviet buildings and stuff like that have a little room off to the side where they sleep and they sit during the daytime. So the kamorka is their room. So the Persian poet in the day room of the concierge. Kind of a ridiculous title, but that's okay. It works. So moving on, we have our first metal release. So just giving everybody's head up, this is the EP, and it really is an EP. I did not have it labeled as such. You could call it a mini, I guess. It is 25 minutes long. It is a mini. This is Outroofs, and the release is Через бури and Volny. Sorry. Put the mякий знак at the end of the L. It shouldn't be Volny, it's Volny. Side point. This is actually a group out of Kazakhstan. And it is a group which has changed its sound a bit. You can kind of tell that from the group's like old covers, a lot more of that sort of punk scene kid emo stuff going on. You can even tell, right, like I'm Drowning, Requiem for Love, Why Is It So Hard to Breathe? It's got a very, emo-y scene kid sort of stuff going on. This, however, they have changed their sound, which you can kind of tell also from the album artwork. Definitely a bit of a change. And the group themselves said as much. So they went from that sort of punk, emo, sort of whatever, scene kid stuff, to what is metalcore, kind of a hardcore punk sound. I saw a lot of comparisons to Alex is on Fire, Parkway Drive, Comeback Kid. I think those are all pretty good points of reference if you're familiar with them. They've got some new versions of old songs too. I think the only question I have is why they included Screamo version, but again, maybe that's one of those things that's to appeal to the older fans in some way, but just metalcore, hardcore punk, kind of, it's more metalcore than anything, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, Alex is on Fire, Parkway Drive, Comeback Kid. I mean, pretty straightforward. I mean, it's as I like to say, they're not reinventing the wheel here, but I think 2 weeks ago there was also a metalcore release. I can't remember which group put it out, but it also had that throwback sound. It was from a group that had been doing it for a long time too, and I don't know. It's kind of refreshing to hear it. Just the metalcore sound over the last decade has changed quite a bit, so. I know when I go out cycling, I listen to a lot of those older tracks, and it's nice to hear modern groups still doing it. Not groups who have been doing it for like decades now, but younger groups who have adopted that sound, so. Got the little breakdown in there as well. It's just kind of... I'll cut it off there. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's a pretty classic sound, all things considered. So that is the mini album here, Через бури and волны, or Through the Storm and Waves, something along those lines, if you would. The group out of Kazakhstan is Out Roofs. Switching back to the indie stuff. This is actually kind of an interesting release. It's a compilation. I don't know if it's IMI or ИМИ.Резищенция 2026. 2026. This IMI, or ИМИ, is an organization. It's not a record label per se, but they're kind of focused on helping new musicians, underground musicians, ones that are just starting out. They try to help them to not fix their music, but improve their music, take it to the next level, kind of break through. I don't follow their Telegram channel anymore, but I did for a while because I thought it was kind of interesting to see some of the faces that they were featuring there. But they always have lots of workshops and everything like that. So they're very much focused on trying to get younger or very fresh artists some of the know-how that they need. And in April, they hosted a multi-day workshop in Переделкино, here in the southwest of Moscow. Now, for those of you who are not from Moscow and don't know anything about it, Переделкино, even if you're in Russia, you might not know Переделкино. Переделкино is a village. It's pretty much inside Moscow now. Like, I bike through it sometimes in the summertime, just because like it's just out there. But in the past, especially during the Soviet era, it would have been outside of the city. And Переделкино was a place where it was kind of like an artistic community. There are a number of these artistic villages around Moscow, and around Petersburg as well too. But I'm in Moscow. I know Moscow a little bit better. And it's where like Abramtsevo, which I just mispronounced, but regardless, you either don't know Russian, or if you're a Russian speaker, you probably know what I'm talking about. That was where, like 150 years ago, all of the painters and those types of artists were. Переделкино during the Soviet period is where there was a heavy concentration of writers. For those of you in the West, out in the States, or wherever you might happen to be, you're probably familiar with Boris Pasternak, right? Or Pasternak, if you will. Dr. Zhivago. He lived and worked in Переделкино. His dacha, his sort of countryside house, is down there. And so it is still, in fact, just recently the Moscow government announced that they were going to turn Переделкино into, or maybe just I can't remember exactly, but they're going to try to turn it into a bit of a cultural museum, which is great. I think they need to do more of that, right? I'm all for that type of stuff, because it's got a very old school vibe. It's just nice. It's retained that atmosphere. So anyway, they invited a bunch of artists from all over the country, and obviously the selection process was quite rigorous, but they've got them there. The artists came in, and they were then matched up with other artists. You can kind of see that, right? We have Omargo, Rubiashvikov, Anya Spitra, Perfect Lord, or I think Perfect Lord, I don't know exactly, Otipov, Vavara Altova. Anyway, they basically, almost all of them got matched up with somebody, and then they were matched up with another musician / producer who was then going to help these artists work together to make music. So they spent the first day getting to know a little bit about the history of the region, just kind of soak in the atmosphere. And then for the next 3 days, it was 96 hours. So that's, 4 days. For 3 days, they worked. Really just 2 days. They worked together and they crafted entirely new songs with people they'd never met before. And the idea was to, first of all, push these artists out of their, right? They matched people together that maybe have music in slightly different genres, to kind of get people to bounce their ideas around, just get the creative juices flowing, that type of stuff. But I think that's great. I think it's a really cool idea. And in the end, they didn't have like an album presentation. Doesn't really matter. They put out this compilation. So this is 8 sort of completely, literally just made specifically from this very intense weekend that they had there. And we get this like really mash of artists and sounds, and it's cool. It's a really cool concept. I've highlighted a few other ones like this in the past, not exactly like this with Пересидский and everything, but where they had compilations and where they would get artists to work together and record tracks specifically for compilation. I always think that's good. I think that's interesting. I like the idea of compilation albums and mixtapes, if you will, in the streaming era. I think that needs to be done more because like it still is a nice concept and still interesting. And for the artists too, it's a good way for them to make connections and just kind of explore new sounds. But as it is, kind of an interesting mix of songs. Some of them I think click a little bit better than others, but that's kind of the fun with compilation albums too, is there's really no, I mean, it's all indie music, but there's really no one clear idea. Are we going to be having delays with the music? I don't have a VPN on, do I? Nope. So tell me. Okay. This kind of went, not viral, but this song caught some attention before this album actually came out because it was released slightly in advance. And you can maybe understand why. I actually featured Rubеж Веков. Seriously. Interesting. Anyway, I featured them probably like a month ago. Maybe 2 months ago. It is probably the best track on the album, not gonna lie. I mean, it makes sense you lead with it, but there are some other ones. I do want to feature Guillotine by Dega here because I think it's an interesting, like, it's definitely still indie music, but it is a bit different. I also really like the album artwork because it's very clearly all images connected to that weekend when they were recording everything. So yeah, think about that last song with kind of the folk acoustic guitar and the whistling and stuff, and now this one with this slightly Eastern, Oriental, whatever you want to call it, rhythm, and the electronics swirling around in the background. I'll cut it off there. All of the tracks are a little bit different, so you're gonna find something, well, different on each of them, but all all said, again, that's kind of the joy of compilations. It is a bit of a grab bag, but it was well put together, and all of the tracks are well crafted. So even though they are all different, there is something to enjoy on, I would say, pretty much all of them. But so that is the various artists, obviously, and that is the ИМИ.Резищенция 2026. 2026. Moving on, we have the EP $6.66. What is funny is they used the US dollar sign, but they used the comma, which is a very European way of doing numbers and figures as opposed to the US way with the dot. But anyway, this is an underground group out of St. Petersburg that had relocated to Tbilisi in Georgia a few years ago. But anyway, this group has been around for over a decade. They've just been kind of playing that lo-fi rock. The group sometimes calls it, the group is Ghost Hippies, by the way. But they label the sound as anti-folk or freak folk. I don't know about that. It's kind of like music all about and for outsiders. It's kind of like, whether or not that be modern day, right, current teenagers who kind of just feel out of the crowd and awkward, which is probably like most teenagers, let's be real, or just those adults who never grew up to fit into the crowd or just chose not to. It's got that sort of like counter culture sort of thing. Whatever, let's just listen to the music, right? Yeah, they need to probably update their page a little bit, but you might think that this is a lot of that kind of like shoegazy, slowcore type of sound, which is correct. It generally does have that. But I'm opening with this track simply to contrast it with the opener track, which is a lot cleaner guitar sound. It's a lot more upbeat, right? So it's not one of those things where there's a specific sound per se. It's just a little bit of anything that you might consider outsider music, loser music, whatever you want to call it, right? I think we all have a general idea of the type of rock music that you would consider either via Hollywood or just our own cultural understanding of music, of that specific sound that is typically used to embody the fringes of social groups. Not society, but social groups, I suppose. So, very lo-fi though, for the most part. Not like super, but lo-fi enough to use that tag. I don't know, it's a pretty fun album. Or EP, whatever you want to call it. I love fuzzy guitar rock, kind of lo-fi, where the cymbals are just splashing so heavily that they just fade into everything as well too. So very short, very energetic for the most part EP. That is $6.66 by the group Ghost Hippies. We've even got like a very sort of teen-coded album artwork, although these individuals are very much not teens anymore, but that's okay. Okay. The next two albums are the other two metal albums. And if we had metalcore, or sort of, yeah, basically metalcore before, these next two are two other genres. So we're going to have three different metal genres. Now, if you look at this is the album Monolith from the group Nihil. 5 tracks, 56 minutes long, and the opening track is over 20 minutes. So if you're familiar with metal, you probably, and just looking at the album artwork too, you can probably guess this is sludgy doom metal. Although it's not afraid to dip its bony, deathly toe into black metal territory when it's feeling a little bit frisky, which isn't too often, but it happens more than you would expect. It's honestly not really the type of music that most people are going to be wanting to spin middle of the summer. It's honestly not the type of release I was kind of expecting. But then again, the next one also kind of doesn't fit the middle of summer thing. But I guess, hey, there's nothing else going on with metal at this point in time, so why not? Evidently, I've actually heard one of these guys' albums before. It was a few years ago, back in 2024, I want to say. This is evidently the fourth in a nihilistic cycle of albums, which represents the fall of civilization. This is from the group itself. The fall of civilization, humanity falling into chaos and hedonistic mindlessness, losing sense of self, the rise of despots, the death of God, and demonic ideologies. So, fun beach jams, right? Like that's you're going to play some sand volleyball. This is what you want to throw on, without a doubt. Let's be real, like 22 minutes, 6.5, 9 minutes, 12 minutes. Like these are the types of songs that are impossible to highlight in any sort of meaningful way. I run into this every single time. But if you're looking for something that is thick as molasses and brooding, then this is probably what you've been waiting for this year. We haven't had a release like this yet, and for its genre, for its specific sound, these guys are doing... Hey, glad to have you from Nizhny. I'm glad to see you tuning in. I didn't know they were from Nizhny. That's good to know. Жучкой. Ропа жучкой. Как правильно произнести вот это название? Вообще не понимаю, что там написано. Ропа жучкой. Жучкой? Anyway, usernames aside, you can maybe understand what I was talking about with the sludgy and but I don't want to. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. It's impossible to highlight this. I even chose like one of the shortest tracks. And as always is the case with this type of music, you just kind of have to listen to it. If it's your thing, you'll quickly understand the level of quality. I don't want to say that there aren't a lot of like doom groups in Russia, but there really kind of aren't. And there really aren't too many doing it like Nihil. At least that I have encountered, so. But yeah, right. This actually isn't as heavy as some of the tracks too. There's a lot of space going on right here. It started out a little bit heavier for sure. If I remember correctly, this one is a little bit heavier. I mean, it's 12 minutes, so we got to spend a little bit of time brooding and building out here. The title of this track is "The Gods Leave to the North." So, oh, and just so you right, monolith, monuments, cold, despot, and the gods leave to the north. So, get an idea of the general vibe. Can we? I really like the final track because it's in that like post-rock, post-metal territory, which is like such a sweet spot for me. There are also vocals on this album as well. Ibrahim, congratulations on your exams, man. That is, I applaud you. That is a massive, massive achievement. So, like, everyone, I don't know, Ibrahim here just started university in Russia as a foreign student this last year, all the way out in Ulan-Ude. So, if you've not tuned in before, yeah, I don't know, show him some love or something. I don't know. That's huge. That is incredible. To like come here, not knowing the language, do the exams and pass everything. So that's like mad respect to you, my man. That is a huge accomplishment. And it's a huge load off your shoulders. Anyway, this album, very long tracks. They develop over a very long period of time. And they're heavy. Some of them are heavier than others. There we go. Yeah. Some of them are a little bit lighter, more spacious, but there is overall just this sort of... It's a very dark atmosphere across this whole album, and it is heavy, and it is sludgy and doomy. But if you are looking for something along these lines, then this is a really good album. It's a very niche genre, it's a very niche sound, but yeah. So that is the album Monolit, and the group is Nihil. So, all right, moving. Come on. Just a second here. Okay, let me try opening a new tab. It's not letting me open a new tab. Well, then I don't actually know. I will get it open here. We'll use Yandex as necessary. You will all have to suffer through the Yandex interface, but that's okay. That's just how it is. Anyway. I was supposed to be looking up the tracks that I want. Anyway, the group here is Edoma, or Edoma. I don't know. Edoma is how I've always pronounced it. Gimны, lедяного, царства, or Hymns of the Icy Kingdom, or the Frozen Kingdom, however you want to say. Very classic. You can probably guess the genre of metal from the album artwork. Give you a second. If you guess black metal, you're absolutely correct. This is from a group out of St. Petersburg. I actually heard their album a few years back. What was the one? Buried by Permafrost. And I did enjoy that quite a bit in 2023. It wasn't perfect. Or no, sorry, not. No, actually, it's black metal. The album all covers. It's Shades of Cold Despair. It was 2024 was when I listened to it. My bad. And what's different this time around, if you maybe saw from the albums down there, this is the first album where they actually sat down and recorded everything in Russian. In the past, they have done it in English first and then switched over to Russian. This time around, the group sat down to do it in Russian first, and then they said that in the future, they probably will release the English version. Not that it matters. It's black metal. Like, the lyrics in black metal are, you know, just generally not comprehensible unless you have the lyric sheet in front of you. You're kind of typically in the dark. Yeah, it's pretty much what you would expect. Wait, I do have the screen up, don't? Yeah, okay. I'm not looking at the stream right now. Yeah, I'm guessing Ulan-Ude is a little bit cooler than Pakistan right now. That is, I have no doubts about that. And the sort of rainy bouts of weather in the Russian summer are pretty common. I think that's, yeah, kind of what I come to expect most of the time anymore. Anyway, what I was getting at, pretty much what you'd expect, black metal, but there are some elements that stray a little bit closer to death metal or like melodic death metal, melodic blackened death, whatever you want to call it. It's got the speed, it's got the riffs that kind of hook your ear from time to time. Now, that said, there are a few tracks, I'm not going to say like a number, but a few, where I started to just kind of zone out, which is not always, happens a lot with black metal because it's very, very repetitive and formulaic. But if you do like black metal on the whole, and like if black metal's your thing, then this is a really good black metal album. I'm just going to throw that out there. Black metal's not really my thing. I do think, I'm just going to throw this out there, no offense to the Edoma guys, but I do think Stuja from a few weeks back, their album was more engaging, but I will highlight a few tracks here. Now that I've got, I think the last two are pretty good ones. Yeah, the last two might be my favorite two on the album, so we'll just hit up with that and. Just a little bit. Not the type of music that you would typically hum to, but I think you get the idea. I do want to jump ahead to the chorus. So, I mean, again, yeah, if black metal's not your thing, then, like, let's just be real, nothing that I show you here is going to do it for you, but. All right, and one other little bit. I do think that the last two tracks are probably my favorite. Not because they're the final two and then the album's over, but just because I do think that the album ends on a relatively high note. The energy picks up, I think, a lot, or the rhythms and the melodies and the riffing gets to be a little bit more, I don't know, hooky. I feel like but I mean, again, you can kind of understand why this is, if you listen to metal music, this is like kind of repetitive. I mean, it is black metal. That feels a bit obvious, but it does have a very thrashy outro. I do love a good thrashy black metal session. So yeah, man, right on. I mean, the black metal, the doom metal thing in Russia. Black metal is by far, I think, the biggest metal scene here in Russia. But unfortunately, a lot of the times it is kind of not really good. Although, on the whole, if we're talking about metal music, I do think that, like, in terms of the actual genres, black metal is by far overrepresented. So it does mean, because again, I'm not a black metal person. So if I'm listening to it and be like, yeah, this is, I can deal with this, then the overall quality of black metal here is quite high. I've actually wondered about that one time. That's one of those things that I feel like there's a pretty obvious explanation, taiga and all of that stuff. But anyway, still really solid black metal release. Probably not my favorite. Like I said, I do enjoy Stuja's album from a few weeks ago. The what was it? Zov Полярных звезд or something like that. Полярных звезд. I don't remember. Полярные звезды. That's what it was. Zov Полярной звезды was Stuja's album from a few weeks ago. I still think that one's a little bit better, but this is still a solid black metal album. And honestly, Edoma has a lot of good stuff. This is their third or fourth album. So this is Gimны, lедяного царства, or Hymns of the Frozen Kingdom, the Icy Kingdom, however you want to translate it. You gotta be kidding me, Spotify. You had that album just a second ago. You had it just a second ago, and now you son of a... Everyone saw that. Everyone saw that conniving little sight there. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Internet in Russia is about as wonderful as you would expect it to be. I will just reference it down here then. We're going to talk about Youth Resort. So Youth Resort is a group I actually talked about the third week of doing these streams back in January of 2025. And they released an album last year. I don't remember what the name of it was either. It had like the snake. Yeah, Godspeed was the name of it. And it was an album last year where I did enjoy it, and I understood why some people would have included it. Even at the beginning of the year, it was like, I understand why some people are going to put this in their like top picks of the year. And Godspeed by Youth Resort was in a number of people's top picks of the year last year. So it's one of those albums that like was good, but I just couldn't quite figure it out at the time. I didn't spend enough time listening to it. I described it as indie bedroom pop, indie rock, and electro pop. Those were the genres I was trying to use to understand it. And while those three genres are still, I would say, correct, I saw someone say that this EP here, ИстиNa by Youth Resort, is the music that they would use to explain to aliens if aliens came to Earth and they wanted to know about the musical culture of the mid 2020s. This is the album that they would use to highlight it, where it's just basically everything all together, but also not chaotic, quite well together. There are sort of vibey post-emo rap elements, a little bit of some old school trip hop, just random saxophones, 90s slacker, slowcore guitar, the indie rock, the electro pop. It's just kind of everything all together, but it works well. I'm going to go with the final track again. Got that kind of trip hop sound. Or big beat maybe even, sorry. The auto-tune. Like, that feels like Toro y Moi from about 10 or 15 years ago as well too. It's just, I love this track. It's just so much going on, but it all kind of works together. Here we have, I guess, what you might call witch house a little bit going on. Again, that post-emo rap sound. There's that sort of slacker, slowcore, guitar rock element. Youth Resort, and if you like this, I do highly recommend going back and listening to last year's Godspeed, because it's got that same kind of energy where it just kind of like how my brain feels after listening to so much music on some days, where it's just like, there's that saxophone. I can't keep stuff straight, and they just kind of like, they start. And then we have just some kind of more indie stuff. Also, it's got Meteorit 2025, which, if you don't know, Meteorit 2025, Жизнь как она есть. Absolutely fantastic indie rock from last year too. So a lot of really good stuff going on, both in the guests and the overall sound on these 5 short tracks. So I'll cut it off there. Yeah, really good EP, really interesting, a lot going on, and it's one of those groups that I didn't really I was too fresh when I ran into them last year. But I think if their album had come out a little bit later last year, or if something like Godspeed by them came out this year, I would have jumped on it a lot more. So I would have given more attention to it. As it is, I'm going to use this EP, ИстиNa, to call attention to them. So that is the group Youth Resort. I'm not actually going to close the Yandex Music tab because I have a feeling that Spotify is going to screw me on this next one here too. Is that what we're going to do? Yeah, Okay. I know your game now. I know your game now, Spotify. For whatever reason. Yeah, Abraham, hit me up if you're gonna be around. I'd love to sort of meet up. I should be around in August. Anyway, we've got a mini album here. It's mini. It's about 24 minutes long. This is Runway53 with the mini album here, Когда, стану тенью, or When I Become a Shadow, or shadows probably. Тенью. I always hate the мягкий знак U sound. It's just like I can't. Полностью, когда я стану тенью. It just feels like тенью. Just I hate that. I hate that sound sometimes. I guess you say N мягкий знак U. This thing right here, I just don't like that. The T мягкий знак U, I can do that, like полностью, right? That type of stuff. Тенью. Anyway, this is a group from the Baikal area originally. I don't think they're from Ulan-Ude originally. I think they were from the Irkutsk region, but they are from the Baikal area originally. Although they did relocate to, that's Ibrahim, I'm throwing it out for you. They're not there anymore, but they are in the Yekaterinburg area now. And for the last few years, they've been kind of building up in the Ural mountain area. So basically Yekaterinburg, YKB. But it kind of feels like they should probably like break through into a more pop, like they probably should be a little bit better known. This is melancholic electro indie pop, indie rock. It's a pretty familiar, some people might even label it generic sound. I don't think generic's the right term, but it's a familiar sound. But the musical arrangements are all very well thought out. The vocals never feel too melancholic, like there's enough mix. And on the whole, across these 7 tracks, granted one of them is a filler track, so across these 6 tracks, there's a nice variety in terms of the actual song structures and sounds. So it's just like a good kind of summer album. It's a little down, but it's also not depressive. Right, like, I mean, from the jump, we've got synths are a little bit colder, but the rhythms are, got the syncopation and they're a little bit more upbeat. Right, we've all heard music like this before. I can't think of any groups specifically, but I'm just like, oh yeah, I know this type of music. And it very much is that like kind of indie, electro, pop, rock. But it's pretty catchy. Like, I don't know what that percussion is back there. It's not a wood block, but it's got that same energy. Take it to the closing track just to kind of bounce. Yeah. Baikal's a little bit away from Milano Day, but you're fairly close. So this has a more classic indie rock sound, right? It basically has the stomp clap going on there, right? Well, not right now, but with the clap is the uptick on the acoustic guitar with the boom ching boom ching ching, which of course is not happening right now, but when it comes back. Bureau is one of those groups with Распыляйся, their album that came out earlier, I think 2 months ago. This group has a lot of that Bureau energy. Not exactly the same, but quite similar. This is definitely more pop leaning, whereas Bureau's more indie leaning, but there's the stomp clap thing going on. All right, one more. Got the Stranger Things opening here. I mean, that's just like, that is what I'm gonna call it. There's the electro pop that I was referring to earlier. I don't know. It's a very good 6 songs. Again, I know there are 7 tracks, but 58 seconds. We're not qualifying that. This is not a grindcore band. You don't get a 58-second song. The 6 tracks here are all really good. It's just like, it's a very solid release. And all of the tracks are a little bit different, but there's a general... None of them feel out of place. Really good. Really like it. But I got one more to get to, so I'm going to finish that right there. That is the group Runway53, and the release is Когда, стану, тенью. Тенью. When I become a shadow. Which I think is a reference to, like, fading after death, that type of thing, or just fading into irrelevance, whatever it happens to be. Hence the melancholic nature, if you will. I'm not gonna close Yandex because I know what's about to happen. Yeah, okay, that's okay. That's okay. That's fine. That's totally. What in the? That is not what I clicked on. All right, y'all are seeing this too, right? This is Yandex. Are you kidding me, right? Okay. Right. We have the group Medjikul. Like, just think of it as the word magic, cool, right? Medjikul. I'm not going to pronounce it Russian. I can't. Those are borrowed words. They're loan words. So, Medjikul. With the album Rikki-Tikki-Tanец. This is a group from St. Petersburg that was slinging a very specific combination of soul and funk and R&B, new jack swing about a decade ago. If those all sound really familiar, to put this into perspective, the two groups I think of when listening to this album, Chromeo, for anyone who remembers Chromeo, and Bruno Mars, circa 24 Karat Magic, so about a decade ago as well. But yeah, kind of a decade ago, they kind of dropped off the radar. They kept making music, but they quieted down a little bit. And then they resurfaced this year. I think they had an EP last year, but for most people, they resurfaced this year with this gem of an album. It is just over 30 minutes, but it's definitely an album. I'm lumping it into the album category. Lyrics are not really serious, half joking, maybe fully joking at times. But just like the music on the album, it's just playing around, it's having a good time. The music, every single track, even the slower ones, even the ones that like I'm not as hot about, they've got like a lot of groove in it. They just make you want to kind of move around. Kind of like the Runway53 release I was just talking about that we were just listening to. This is one of those releases that feels perfectly timed for summer. And if Runway53 was timed for summer in the sense of long evenings that you might spend being introspective, right? Whether walking around the city or just like watching the sun set or watching the sun come up, depending on how late you stay up. This is more of the like grooving, vibing, having a fun, good time with everyone and just like having a blast. So I'm just going to go ahead and play it. You'll figure out very quickly what this album is. Also, fantastic color scheme on this album artwork. This is where the Chromeo reference comes in, if you're familiar with Chromeo, that like funky little synth. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I think you got the overall atmosphere of this album. The lyrics really aren't important here. The name of the song is Mississippi. Doesn't matter if you don't understand Russian because the lyrics are kind of nonsense, just generally not important. And I think it's worth mentioning too, Bruno Mars is not just popular in English-speaking countries. Lots of non-English speakers listen to Bruno Mars. There's just something about this specific neo-soul sound. Although, again, there is like that kind of new jack swing in here as well. There's that funk. That combination of sounds still holds up, and it's just fun. I am not a dancer. That's okay. I will still sway around idiotically in my seat. This is one that's got a little bit more of that New Jack swing. Not like 100%, 100%, but New Jack swing, for those of you who are not familiar, would be like the like that R&B era, Boys to Men in some situations. Friday just got paid by who the hell did that song? Johnny Kemp just got paid. I mean, for anybody who lived through the 80s and 90s, then you're definitely probably going to recognize some of these sounds from like urban music or whatever it would have been referred to at that point in time. R&B. I can even imagine the outfits and the hairstyles specifically connected to that type of music. Very wet, very curly, kind of ridiculous. Or just like really aggressive flat tops. One last one, but I think it's pretty clear. I really like this album. I really like the Runway53, and I honestly, the Youth Resort one, even though it's an EP, also really solid. But I think this is here in the first week of astronomical summer, with the summer solstice behind us last Saturday. Or last Sunday. Sunday, wasn't it? It was last Sunday. This being the first sort of like fully official, from a, I don't know, nature point of view, week of summer. This feels like a very appropriate place to end with, because this just feels like a summer album. If I had to distill good vibes, warm weather, grilled food, hanging out with friends, maybe a campfire, this feels like this. So yeah, I'm gonna end this with this one today. This is Medjikul with the album Rikki-Tikki-Tanец. Tanец is dance in Russian, so Rikki-Tikki-Tanец. And then we're going to transition. And then we will be back to, well, I will be back to the YouTube studio on my computer, which means I will be able to, actually, the chat is not available here, so I'll keep it open down here for a second. But yeah, that's kind of it. I don't know what's up with Spotify. I had a problem connecting my stream at the beginning too, so whatever. Yandex Music does exist. I will use it from time to time, even though I hate the interface and the fact that they aggressively push AI artists. But what are you gonna do? I just typically don't use it. Yeah, I do think that I am going to, so we do have one last Friday of music releases here in June. So obviously next week is still going to be June music, and I probably am going to go back and dig through some of those late May releases that I just didn't get around to. It's just like, yeah, a lot more music came out in May than in June, all things considered. And I probably will continue to push with the June releases into the beginning of July a little bit. I don't know. I honestly don't remember from last year. I don't remember the releases slowing down last year, but I don't know. I really, again, the first year doing it, it's kind of hard to notice specific trends or pay attention to anything. I was kind of just figuring out the schedule and everything in a lot of ways. It took me 52 weeks, but I got it. So yeah, that said, because I believe the first 3 weeks of January, I was just focusing on music for the first, the first quarter, or for the, Jesus Christ, for the first 3 weeks, I completely lost my train of thought. I was focused on music that I had missed from 2025. What I'm going to do for the next few weeks, obviously when July music does start to come out, I will listen to it. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to spend the next few weeks to just dig through any releases from like May or June that I didn't get around to, that I think are still worth the time, while simultaneously like trying to keep an eye on July stuff. Anyway, that's just me explaining things that you don't really need to know, but I like to think out loud. So anyway, I guess that's kind of it. I don't really have anything else exciting or interesting. I don't think so. I plan to go do the filming for the next metro station, the next area of the city tomorrow. If the weather is supposed to not suck, which they promise rain pretty much every single day, but I think that's just because they are incompetent and they don't actually know how to predict the weather. So if you predict the rain and then it doesn't come, nobody's going to be upset with you. But if you don't predict the rain and it does come, then people will be upset. So you just predict there's going to be rain, probably like 50% chance, and then you go off on vacation for like a month or two, and you're good. So yeah, I do think I'm going to go out and hit up, do the filming in the part of the city, and yeah, I don't have anything intelligent to say. I think we're done. I'm glad everyone tuned in. I hope you guys found some sweet tunes to enjoy, whether those tunes be doom and black metal or metalcore, whether they happen to be a little bit more traditional indie rock this week, or whether they tend to be something a little bit more funky or vibey from the last few releases. There were some pretty good things, but yeah, that's kind of that. So here's what I'll say, Ibrahim. Profession aside, I'm self-employed, so that's neither here nor there. Profession aside, show the side of Moscow, which Western media doesn't show. I do want to say something about that, because I don't think the Western media specifically shows Moscow. I don't want to go out on a limb here. I am going to wrap up the stream in just a minute, but I do think, because this is something that I see again and again and again. It's like with YouTube videos, like showing you the Moscow that the Western press is afraid to show you, the side of Moscow that the mainstream media will never show you. And it's always just Moscow City, or like the most expensive districts in the center of the city. Nobody thinks, or I'm sure that there are people who think that there's just like no money in Russia, but there are idiots in every country, right? So like teaching idiots is not something that I'm like setting out to do. I'm assuming that if you're watching me, you have like a modicum of, activity upstairs. The Western media doesn't show Moscow because that's not what, the only time the Western press talks about Russia is nowadays, at any rate, in connection to international politics. So the only images that it's going to show are probably those connected to the Kremlin or official press conferences. So the only images that the Western media is going to be showing of Russia are those connected to politics, political images, monuments that were. It's the same reason that when people show images of the United States, it's like Times Square, the Congress building, the mall in Washington, D.C. Like, it's a few images, the White House, right? If it's something connected to politics, it's going to be like the 3 or 4 images that we all associate with American politics. If it's something connected to America as like a country, it's going to be like a few of those images that we all associate with America, even Americans, right? Like, how many Americans have never been to New York City? Plenty. But if you show the New York City skyline, it's like, oh yeah, that's New York over there. Or you show the Golden Gate Bridge, it's like, oh yeah, that's California, right? Like, that's just how we associate. So this whole idea of I'm going to show the side of Moscow that the Western media doesn't show, I've seen that so many times, but I think that's just such a disingenuous thing, because the Western media doesn't give a shit to show Russia, because that's not its job. Western media is not out to like advertise or show something. I'll be fair, there probably is more focus on rundown and sort of more dejected looking images than actually exist in Russia. Or I don't want to say that they actually exist, because those images that are shown do actually exist in Russia. They don't focus as much on like the normal situation, right? But by that same metric, there are also plenty of YouTube channels that only focus on like Skid Row in the United States. The thing with like press, by and large, we expect certain images, and whether or not those images, they're stereotypes, and whether or not those images are fair is an entirely different story. But again, right, as somebody who doesn't come from New York City or from California, when I see the United States represented, when I see the United States represented by New York City or Los Angeles or San Francisco or Miami, I'm just like, that's not the States. Like, for me, the Midwest, the middle of the country, is the States. And I'm not even talking Texas. Texas is its own thing, right? So we all have our own preconceived notions of what best represents the country. And it's impossible, like that's always the problem. It's impossible to summarize any country, even a small country like Belgium, in just like a single image or a few. I mean, obviously with a smaller country, it's a little bit easier. But once you get into like big countries that are geographically and demographically diverse, it's just like, it's impossible, right? Like, you can put your whole life into studying it and trying to make sense of it and trying to figure out a way of encapsulating like this massive thing. But even when you start to figure it out, it's always shifting and always changing. So, well, here's the thing though. Moscow was burning. That's the one thing I do want to point out, right? Like, the press was not wrong in saying that Moscow was burning. I could look out my window and see fire, black smoke in the air. I wasn't super close to it. I'm like kilometers away from that thing. I had no idea where Kapotnya was. I had the general idea, but now I know exactly where the refinery is. And the Western press focusing on that was probably correct, because Kapotnya is out of service for the rest of the year. And Kapotnya services like 60% of the fuel in Moscow. So, yeah, no, and I honestly, I think the Volga is its own. I love the Volga. I haven't spent enough time there. I'm a huge fan of the Urals. My wife and I went to Yekaterinburg, and then we didn't go down to Chelyabinsk, but we went to Mias, which is down there. And I love the atmosphere, and I love the energy there. I do like Petersburg. Petersburg isn't for me. I'm a Moscow guy. That's my thing. But I love the north too. And I do want to get up to Karelia in the near future. And Ulan-Ude and out in Baikal, I'm sure is beautiful. And I would love to get out to Altai. It's just like, it's the same in the States, right? You know, I love the Southwest. I love the Pacific Northwest. I think New England is beautiful in so ways. I'm a Midwesterner. Like, I'm going to love Iowa and Chicago and Wisconsin and the Great Lakes. That's my jam right there. Colorado and the Rocky Mountains, like massive, geographically diverse countries. And they're great and they're beautiful. And I'm sure like, Ibrahim, you're from Pakistan. I'm sure Pakistan, I know Pakistan is massive and diverse, and there's just, it's a huge country as well. Not as big as Russia, or not as big as the United States, but still big in its own right. So, like, Moscow, when I go out to show Moscow, I'm not going out to disprove or prove something. Moscow is a great city, but it also is a fucking shitty city in its own right. And I think both of those things can be true. Just as there are things I love about the United States, and there are things I think are absolute dog shit. And the things that are absolutely horrible, I have hated for decades now, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be just like, but the whole country needs to burn to the ground. The same reason that there's a lot of stuff in this country and in this city that I don't like or that I don't agree with. Now, some of those things I am not going to express vocally. Let's just be real. That's the country I and you and some of these other people watching live in, right? Like, if you live in Russia, you just recognize that as a reality of your existence. But I think that there are a number of things that you can reasonably highlight, whether they be good or bad or just indifferent. And I think I'm just like more interested. For me, when I show Moscow, I'm not interested in like trying to prove a point. I'm just interested in showing it because my family watches that stuff, and people I know in the States watch that stuff, and other people who maybe want to come here or never are going to come here, but they are still interested in it. It gives them an opportunity to see stuff. But I think more importantly too, and this is kind of the reason I'm doing this as well, the current mayor of Moscow began a renovation complex or a program of renovating the city about a decade ago. And the renovation, or the renovation program, we'll call it, it basically, the main idea there is they tear down old buildings and they build new high rises in its place. And when they first started it, it was fine. Like, people were generally on board with it. But it's gotten to the point where over the last 5-6 years, realistically since COVID, it feels like the rate of construction has accelerated. And Moscow used to be a relatively short city, right? You know, the average height of buildings was, I think, like 12 stories. It has, if I'm not mistaken, doubled in the last few. And so while there's nothing inherently wrong with that, the speed at which the city has been changing and the landscape and just the actual atmosphere of the city, because like when you elevate everything like that, it changes a lot of stuff, not just from how you feel walking around the city, but just also like the air, right? You put that many more people into it. And so going around and filming stuff, and also like historical buildings are getting knocked down. Whether or not they deserve to be saved is a matter of discussion, but regardless, once they're gone, they're gone. And so as somebody who has lived in this city consistently for 17 years now, and who first came to this city 20 years ago, I've seen a lot of changes. And for me, recording the city, like walking around and showing stuff, it's also partly at this point in time just like historical document, because 10 years from now, you're going to be able to like see some of this stuff and it will look different. And I mean, like, that's fair. That's how cities change. But there is something to be done also with sort of archiving it in its own way, as dumb as that might sound. But I understand cities grow and change, but I kind of want to freeze my version of the city in some specific way, right? And even if that is only possible by recording it and uploading it to YouTube so then that it is available for as long as YouTube exists, at least the city as I saw it and as I experienced continues to exist in that form. And there are a lot of videos of Moscow out there, but they are all focused on the center. And I like the center, and that's good and well, but Moscow is a stupid large city. It's incredibly large. It's scaredly large at times. You know, it's the point where from where I sit, which is not even on like the butt end of the city, but like for me to go to the other side of the city, it's well over an hour, right? You know, you can go from one end of the metro to the other, and it is like an hour and 20 minutes. So I don't know how realistic it is to document this whole city in any sort of meaningful way, but I'm going to try. And I feel like it's kind of fun to take y'all along with me. So I'm not out to prove or disprove the Western media, because I don't think the media is really out to prove or disprove something. They use specific images that are connected to perceptions that the audience already has. And there is bias. That's always the case. But I'm also, when it comes to the media, not ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's just critical thinking skills. Yeah, but again, that's another discussion. It's like one of those things, like, are there reasonable criticisms that the West could have with Russia? That's up for you to decide. Are there reasonable criticisms that Russia could have with the West? Up for you to decide. But it's, you know, I'll put it like this. If Russian media can get away with doing the same thing that Western media does, it's a tit for tat. Watch the Russian press and see how they depict the United States and the West. You'll find plenty of perhaps not the best examples. It just, you know, turnabout is fair play, as they say. Who did it first? It doesn't really matter at this point in time. That's just how it is. Critical thinking skills are a key. But all right, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Got stun lock, sidetracked. I'll be back next week with more music. I had 9 this week. There was actually one other album I was gonna try to squeeze in, so I'm already a little bit ahead for next week, which is good because whatever. That's it. Everyone have a good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of day it happens to be where you are. Y'all take care of yourselves. I will see you when I see you, but until then, пока.